Hello and welcome to iHeart Cooking. I'm registered dietitian Jennifer Stachler.
And I'm Chef Dugan Wetzel.
We are brought to you by Reid Health Community Benefits, WCTV, and RP&L. Today on this recipe, we're going to be talking about how to make omega changes. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about making omega changes. And when we're talking about omega changes, we're really talking about omega-3 fatty acids. Those omega-3 fatty acids you find in a lot of foods like fatty fish, some of your walnuts, some things like tuna, mackerel, salmon. One other place you can find a lot of omega-3 fatty acids is chia seeds. So our recipes today focus on chia seeds. They're a unique little seed that you can use almost in anything. I mean, from salads to cereals to adding them to soups. I mean, you name it, you can add them very easily to things. And one recipe we're going to start off with today is called Chia Meatballs. So we're actually going to be putting them in a meatball. So a really fun recipe, kind of a easy recipe to begin with, and
you're really not going to know that they're there either. So it's nice. Actually, what we're going to do first is make our meatballs. Very simple, very easy recipe. We're using a 90-10 lean ground beef. You can use a ground turkey. Just you want to make sure that there's not a lot of fat in there, and that's okay, because with the chia, what's interesting about it is once it gets a little moisture in there, they can actually absorb 10 to 12 times their weight in liquid, which makes them really gelatinous. Kind of turns them into an egg. So it acts as that binder. So you really don't need a lot of fat because they're going to help hold everything together. So we're using a lean ground beef. We're just going to add some carrots, some shredded carrot to it.
It's just nice to get a vegetable intake in there. Not only are you just getting the meat protein aspect, you got the vegetable too.
Absolutely. You're going to add some Parmesan cheese. Again, another binder. Once that kind of firms everything up, it'll absorb some of that moisture that's in there, and it'll give you that salt that you're looking for. That you're not actually so you're not actually adding salt. We're going to add some herbs in here. Dried herbs. You can use whatever you like. For this one here, we're using an Italian blend. But if you're specific with, like you really like basil, you can use that. Or if you wanted to use marjoram or something like that, it's feel free to use whatever you want. It's just an herb, and whatever flavor you like, absolutely go for it.
I said, and being this kind of recipe with meatballs, you can kind of make it your own. So you could use actually beef, ground turkey, ground pork. I mean, and depending on ground chicken, and depending on the type of protein source you have, sometimes you have different kind of seasonings that work best with those. So when I think of like pork, for instance, I think a lot of sage that I would add to that to add some of that extra flavor. So it really is dependent sometimes on the protein that you do use, and you can find lean proteins in any of those as well.
Absolutely. So I just went ahead and added a couple more ingredients, some garlic, a little bit of pepper to kind of combat the saltiness from the Parmesan, and some green onion. We are going to add just one egg to this to go with our chia seeds. You don't necessarily have to have the egg. You can just add more chia seeds because like I said a little earlier, you can use that as a substitute because of its gelatinous properties. It'll hold everything together for you. So just a couple tablespoons in here. The last thing we're going to add here is some fresh basil. Nothing better than fresh basil in my opinion.
I agree.
It's great once you open the package. You just get that nice smell. Reminds me of spring and summer. A really refreshing herb. So all we're really doing is picking the leaves here off the stem. And we'll show you a special cut called a chiffonade. What you do is you just put your basil leaves on top of each other, and then just roll them really easy. Just like that. And then you just slice them. By doing this, they give nice ribbons. You can stretch them out. They're real thin cut. They give a nice presentation on top of any dish. But we're going to go ahead and add them to our meatballs here. And now that those are in there, we're just going to go ahead, mix everything up, and form our meatballs.
And as Dugan's kind of doing that, you can kind of see everything kind of incorporate in there. I do a lot of meatballs at home with my kids. I have a almost 3-year-old girl at home where she loves this part. This is something I'll give her a pair of gloves and have her, add the ingredients in there and just go at it. Not always do I give her gloves, but sometimes with little kids, they get a little messy, and then she wants to put them like in her mouth and stuff. So it's nice and clean at home, but it's a fun recipe to do with kids. Nice thing also about being kid friendly is you got the vegetables in there. So that's something, you're getting a hidden vegetable within the protein source. So if you have picky eaters who don't like their vegetable intake, perfect opportunity to include that into a meal.
Certainly. All right, so we've got everything nice and incorporated. We didn't push too hard to kind of mix in some air to make them nice and soft. If you push them too hard and you press down, it's going to make the meatballs really dense. So you want a nice soft meatball because it's going to cook in the oven, and then we're going to go ahead and throw it into a sauce to finish it. So you want to have that space in there so it can kind of absorb the sauce. So just real quick, a fast roll. We're going to put them on the parchment paper on our baking sheet here.
And again, you can roll it to whatever size you like.
Absolutely.
Kind of good rule of thumb when you're looking at, how much protein to include into your diet. Great tip is to use the female's palm of the hand. The width and the thickness is about 3 ounces. And they kind of recommend that women get about 4 to 5 ounces of protein per day, and for males to get about 5 to 6 ounces per day. So it's a great measurement using your hand.
About done here. We'll do a couple more. We've got our oven preheated to 400 degrees. We're just going to go in for about 10 minutes, start the cooking process, let it kind of brown on the outside and sear the flavor in there. And then after 10 minutes, we're going to show you here a real quick tomato sauce recipe. We're just going to add them in there and simmer for about 20 minutes. So.
Another quick kind of guide if you don't want so much making into meatballs. Sometimes I also use my cupcake sheet, and I'll fill a cupcake sheet full of the meat and then put it actually into the oven. And it's another quick, easy way to get kids involved. They can just kind of put it in there because they might not be so good at rolling the actual meatball out. So you can kind of, again, have them help out.
Absolutely. Okay. Get our last one here. Now you're going to notice that some of these carrots, they are raw at this point. They're going to stick out a little bit. Don't worry about that so much because they're going to go in, like I said, in the oven and then into a sauce. They're going to soften up, so you're not going to have these pokey points that are going to be sticking out of the meatball. So I'm going to go ahead and take this over, throw it in the oven for about 10 minutes, and then while we're doing that, we'll go ahead and start our sauce.
Absolutely. So now that we have the meatballs in the oven for about 10 minutes, we're going to get started on this pasta sauce. Very quick and easy.
Oh, yeah.
It's great if you're doing, especially looking at a meal for 30 minutes or less. These 2 recipes you can easily do. So to get started with the meat sauce, basically we're going to add our pasta sauce, we're going to add the olive oil. We want to let that olive oil get nice and warm before we actually start adding our onions. We're going to add our onions as a first step, let them cook off for about a minute, and then add our garlic after that. So we put olive oil in there. It's a great source of a good fat. Talking omega-3 fatty acids, also those polyunsaturated fats, which are found in a lot of our olive oils. So we get the olive oil nice and heated up. We add some of our onions, see if we can start hearing. Yep, that oil's nice and hot. We'll cook these onions for about a minute, let them soften up, and then we'll add our garlic to it. One of my favorite steps right here in the kitchen is the smell that we get within the kitchen.
A good tip to follow, actually, like Jennifer said, you start with your onions and then you move on to your garlic. A reason for that being that onions take a little bit longer to cook than garlic, and if you go to a store, you can purchase the minced garlic in the water, and it's so small that if you put it in for too long, it starts to get burnt, and it gives a bitter taste to the oil, to the onions, to your whole dish overall. So it's always a good thing to actually start with your onions and other type of vegetables that you're using, and then adding the garlic in towards the end of it before you add your sauce and all that, to kind of just to roast it, to cook it off, to let those flavors come out a little bit.
Absolutely. So. And I have to be honest, there's been times where I've put my garlic in too soon and I've burnt it, and I'm thinking, oh, dang it, Dugan would be ashamed of what I did, so I trash it and usually start all over.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I have made that mistake in the past, but I'm getting better. I think it's more of having kids at home. I'm not so patient with my cooking anymore. So these are softening up here. We'll give them just a little bit longer. The onions will become somewhat translucent as we kind of cook that, and we'll add the garlic here in a little bit. We'll add the garlic here, let that cook off for about a minute, and then we'll add all the rest of our ingredients, and then we just let that simmer.
Very fast, very easy, very clean too. That's the nice part, because we're using low sodium tomatoes, canned tomatoes. We're using a low sodium tomato sauce. Then it's just adding herbs. Adding a little red pepper to it if you like heat. You can also, I know a lot of people's customs around here is to actually add sugar to their tomato sauce to give it a little bit of sweetness, which I admit I do myself. So
I actually do as well at some times. So we have our herbs I added, our low sodium tomato sauce, and some low sodium tomatoes there. And now that all the ingredients are added in here, we're just going to let it simmer and wait till those meatballs are done, and then we'll put the meatballs into the sauce. So our meatballs are actually done, so we're going to actually take them out of the oven and put them into our pasta sauce.
As you can see, they're starting to brown on the outside. Got all that moisture. Even though it's a 90-20 or 90-10, excuse me, ground beef, there's still a lot of moisture in there, but it's good to have the Parmesan, the chia seeds to absorb that and kind of combine everything and hold it together. So yeah, all we're gonna do now is take our meatballs. Be careful, they'll be a little warm. And just go straight into our sauce.
And it's really colorful because, I mean, you can see in there the green from the basil, you see the orange from the carrots. Now you're putting it into a red sauce, so it's a very colorful dish as well. So very appealing to the eye.
Okay. And we're just gonna let that stew for a little bit.
Yep.
Turn it up a little, let the sauce start to simmer, and then takes about 20 minutes. The meatballs will cook all the way through, and then we'll be ready to serve. So now that the meatballs are in there, we're gonna go ahead and start on our final recipe for the episode.
So the next recipe we have is more of like a breakfast recipe. So we got more of our savory kind of dinner lunch that you can do, but now we're gonna be doing an apple-baked cinnamon steel cut oatmeal. So it's basically an oatmeal that you bake, and we're just gonna kind of, again, throw everything together a little bit and put it into a baking sheet.
Very easy. We're using chia seeds again, and then as we were talking about earlier, they become very gelatinous, very, egg consistency. The way to do that is you take about a tablespoon of the chia seeds and add about 3 tablespoons of water, and you can use that as your egg substitute for every egg. So we've put our chia seeds in our bowl. We're gonna go over here and get a little bit of water and then let them sit for a couple minutes. It doesn't take very long.
Yep.
Very, very small amount of time. Okay. So we'll let that sit there.
And like Dugan kind of mentioned, you can replace an egg with that, which is great because you're getting less cholesterol there, less of those saturated fats that are found in there, and it's a great replacement of that. In past episodes, we have worked with chia seeds in the past, and we actually have made like chia pudding where it gets, that gelatinized because of, like Dugan mentioned, what the chia seeds are capable of doing.
So now that our chia seeds are sitting in the water, they're gonna absorb. We're gonna go ahead and just add the rest of our ingredients, kind of mix everything up, and by that time, we'll add our chia seeds and we'll be ready to go. So using a little bit of milk here, using some skim milk.
Skim milk will be a great way to lessen the calories and also saturated fats in the product. You can also use almond milk in replacement as well.
Add flavor to it as well.
Yeah, be adding flavor to it. So it's whatever you kind of prefer and your preference on that.
Just adding the rest of them. Cranberries, cinnamon. We're going to add a little bit of vanilla for flavoring. Some maple syrup.
And again, if you're looking at calories or carbohydrates for the maple syrup, that's something you might want to choose sugar-free if you want as well, but that's something even choosing the lighter version instead of that true maple syrup.
A little bit of oil. Our oats. And it says in our recipe to use steel-cut oats. For anybody that's not familiar with steel-cut oats, there's typically about 3 kinds. Steel cut is one, instant is another, and then rolled is a third. Steel cut oats are basically the whole oat groat, just cut up into small pieces. They really resemble rice. They're very firm, and then as far as cooking times, they probably take the longest of the 3 to actually cook. So if you're in a bind, you can certainly use rolled oats in this or something, or the instant oats. Because then, if you need to do it in a quick hurry, you can use those. Rolled oats are exactly what they are. They're rolled, flattened oats, and then the quick instant oats. They've been cooked a couple times before they get to you, so they're exactly
Instant quick.
It's an instant oat. Yeah.
And the nutrition difference between all those is as you have, the rolled oats versus the instant, or the difference between each of them is the fiber content kind of goes down. As you cook them more and more, the nutrients are being taken out of that, so you're better off getting something that possibly is not, for instance,
an instant oat.
Instant oats is instant oats. But again, if you're in a hurry, you could use those. You're still getting some of the health benefit from that. Still heart healthy. But again, sometimes those rolled oats or the old-fashioned oats are more nutritious.
Okay. Last thing we're going to add here is just a little bit of apple. If you want, you can take the skins off, or you can hold them on there. Personal preference again. It's just going to add a little bit of texture. The smaller you cut them, the less you're even going to notice it, that the skin's on it anyways. So completely up to you. For this recipe, we're just going to go ahead and leave them on there.
Another nice thing about leaving the skin on there is a lot of the nutrients are found right below the skin, so you're keeping those intact, where if you take the skin off, you're kind of losing some of those.
Absolutely. Okay. So just going to go straight into our mixture here.
And also the type of apple you use, you can do with whatever you kind of prefer in that taste. I mean, if you're somebody who likes more of that sour taste, you could easily add a green apple to this.
Yeah,
so each one kind of varies on your preference and also what you have available.
Okay. So that's our apple. Get these last little pieces here. We're going to check on our chia seeds. You can see here, they used to be loose and free. Now they've kind of resembled an egg once you've cracked it. They've kind of combined with all that gelatinous material in them. They've absorbed, like we said, 10 to 12% their body, or 10 to 12 times more their body weight. So they're just ready to go. We're going to add them straight into this mixture. Okay. And then we're just going to whisk it all together. Once that's whisked together, we're going to go ahead and add it into our pan and then into a 375-degree oven for about 35-40 minutes. You're looking for your oats to start turning golden brown on the top. It's going to, if you look at it now, it's absolutely a liquid. It's not going to firm up in this state, but once it's cooked through, you're going to be able to touch it and feel that it has firmed up. All that moisture's been absorbed, and it's ready to come out of the oven. So just straight into our pan. Kind of mix those cranberries around a little bit. And then straight into the oven.
So both of our recipes are actually done, so we're going to get the oatmeal bake out of the oven.
As you can see, the moisture, like we said, completely absorbed into the chia seeds and the oatmeal and everything in there, so it's nice and brown. And what you want to do with this is kind of let it cool, and then let it rest, let it reabsorb everything, cut it, and then serve it. So.
And then also our Chia Meatballs are actually done as well with the pasta sauce. So we'll plate these up and try them, see how things are. So we have both of our recipes, as you can see, plated up. Very nice presentation here. I love the look of this, the green, a little bit of orange, and then you got that red sauce in there. Another great recipe to do at home, quick and easy. Also, you have your oatmeal bake here. Doesn't look like typical oatmeal you see in a bowl, but again, it's baked off. Like you said, everything came together. It's all firmed up. You don't see any of that liquid. So we'll give these a try here. You can actually see the carrot there in that recipe as well, those hidden vegetables. Great flavor there. And that's something, again, a lot of our recipes, we omit the salt out of there. You would never guess that. You would still get a little bit of that sodium from the Parmesan cheese, and also, yeah, you have low sodium tomato products in that sauce, but it still gives you a little bit of that flavor there. Plus you get a lot of the basil in there is what I taste as well.
Absolutely.
Great dish to have. I don't really chase those chia seeds, which again, you don't when you use them in recipes. They kind of are as a filler to add those omega-3 fatty acids there for you.
Yeah, same with the oatmeal bake. You don't really taste the chia seeds at all. Oatmeal's obviously your star of this. If you're a big fan of oatmeal, you're really going to like this. Yeah. You can add, we added craisins. You can add raisins, whatever kind of dried fruit that you want. Yep. It's got a nice sweetness added to it. It's just overall a really nice dish. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So great dishes for you again to get those omega-3 fatty acids in there and to make some omega changes. Thank you for tuning into this episode of iHeart Cooking when we made omega changes using omega-3 fatty acids with the chia seeds.
For more recipes like these that you had today, visit reidhealth.org/iHeartCooking.
We'll see you next month.